on a very, very professional podcast. You can tell because I'm like running around grabbing all the chords and just acting like a complete dumbass in the middle of me doing everything. I'm here with Aric from Arcantica, which is a post-hardcore band out of New Hampshire. Second New Hampshire band I think I've had on.
Wow.
This will be close to the 100th episode. So yeah, happy to have you on. Really stoked to talk about your new EP that's coming out May 30th, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I have that right in my head. I'm on the wrong page here on my notes. So yeah, Vacancy, which is an absolutely fantastic record. What I really liked about it, we'll get into this more as we go do a track by track. But what I really liked about it is your band really does have your own unique sound. I think I should have had you I'm being really professional here.
It's okay.
But you play guitar and do vocals, some of the vocals in the band, correct?
So I did play guitar for a long time in the band, and we can get into that if you want to know how the band was formed and stuff. But now I'm just the vocalist.
Okay, cool. So you do the primary like almost all of the vocals, both the singing and the screaming on the recordings. Is that
our bassist does some of the background screaming, but the rest is me.
I was curious because you do have that sort of like back and forth sometimes in some of the songs that's very like classic post-hardcore.
Yeah.
And so I was like, either, I've seen some videos from you guys. I've seen videos of you like and a guitar and stuff. So that's why I was just sort of assuming, but we'll get into that. But yeah, the record's really great. You could clearly hear, and we've kind of, we obviously got in contact initially through a other podcast group that's really based in emo and post-hardcore. So obviously your influences are at the forefront there. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things about this. It's got a lot of the classic post-hardcore influences that you and I probably had from like the Warped Tour era. You've got like some other interesting sounds and kind of, especially your voice has a lot of different like, you can kind of like see where you might pull from a lot of different influences, both the singing and screaming. We'll get into all that. But again, first and foremost, just want to start this off. Vacancy, which when we put this out, the record will be out, is an absolutely fantastic release. We got 6 songs on it. So definitely it's one of those EPs that is like an in-betweener, right? It's not a 3-song EP. It's not a 10, 11 song record. It's definitely like a cool in-between release, which I think is a good way to go for an EP. Josh from Riverside Drive also says boo and says hello on the live stream here right
Josh.
now.
Yeah, of course he does.
Possibly going to see him in Chicago today, and I was not, and then it wasn't just the recording. I maybe would have talked to you about that, but I also had work so late it wasn't going to work out. So he's probably in here to tell me that I failed by not going to see him today. But hello to Josh. So just in general, record's really great. Really excited for that release for you guys. So I figure what we'll do today, we'll break down where music became a big part of your life for you, where you kind of, where you kind of went from being sort of like a casual listener to being a big part of your life to then writing your own music, and then obviously where the band came from, break down the record. But what I like to do with people to start off, to kind of break the ice, even though, we're not complete strangers here, but is kind of tell me what you've been listening to a lot lately. What would be kind of your Spotify on repeat or the equivalent of, sort of kind of break down, like, what have you been listening to? It could be like a band you've played with, could be the latest Silverstein record, could be the latest metalcore record, just kind of tell me what you've been listening to.
Honestly, I've been listening to a lot of Feel Something by Movement, which is kind of old at this point. It's almost 10 years old now, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It's just been really rainy here, so it feels like it's like that kind of vibe for an album lately. So I've just been listening to that a lot.
That's a record I haven't gone, like, Movements is a band that I always go like in and out of listening to a bunch. But like when I go back to them, I'm reminded of like, why the fuck am I not listening to this all the time? But there's just between doing this show and also just being inundated with new releases, apart from that, you're just like so wrapped up in new music that sometimes you forget about the classics. So that's a good one to go back to. Yeah, I remember this one, and this one I remember Ruckus because I think the album art's so awful, but in a way it worked because it made me remember it. Yeah. It's got very like MS Paint energy for the album art.
I really like that,
but it's a good record.
Though. Yeah,
it's good. It's just, and I feel like they kind of went with the people will remember this because it's so gaudy type deal for the album art, which works.
For sure.
But yeah, again, that's I say this every single time I'm doing this, but I definitely need to like go back and listen to this band. I'm actually gonna go save their earliest record on Spotify on my newest profile. So there we go. But yeah, so again, happy to have you on here. What I would like to do here is just kind of break down first and foremost, what were some bands as far back as you can remember, bands that like kind of really pulled you into being away from kind of a casual listener as a kid, what your parents put on, what older sibling or friend or whoever was putting on, and kind of like really pulled you into being like attached to music, like as far back as you can go. What kind of like brought you into that headspace?
Well, as far back as I can go, the first band I ever really listened to was Linkin Park. And a lot of stuff I listened to was influenced by my brother. I have two brothers, and is not my oldest brother, but the one kind of between the two of us. He would always show me like the heavier side of music. And at first I was like, I hate screaming. Eventually, you get used to the sound of it and you understand why people like it and you start to like it. And then once I got into that, I think the first few bands I liked, which might Silverstein is one of them, which I'm sure is no surprise to you. And then stuff like From Autumn to Ashes, huge influence on me. Trying to think of some of the other really early stuff. Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, stuff like that. Like the classic post-hardcore metalcore
classic, like the emo post-hardcore fusion bands, so to speak, from that era. Were you somebody that got pulled in as far, we're talking, we know each other a little bit from Silverstein fandom. Was it the first record, the second record? What was the era that pulled you into that band?
I think by the time I liked them, Arrivals and Departures was out. That seems a little late, though. I definitely liked a lot of both When Broken Was Easily Fixed and Discovering the Waterfront.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to the first record. I'm a little bit of I'm somebody that goes back and listens to the live version of that record, that they put out, because the production's almost better on the live record. And obviously Shane, we know, is like, I would say gets like an award for most improved vocalist, I would say, in a lot of ways.
But there's something too that like emotional like screechiness of that first record.
There's something to the first record. Yeah. You can't replicate it when you like learn what you're doing. Right.
Exactly.
Right. But I mean, Silverstein, Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, all that stuff, like From Autumn to Ashes, like those bands are formative, probably. And I see that from your music because like there's like that sort of raw energy to it. Linkin Park is another one that I hear a lot on this podcast, just from anyone that's in our relative age group within 10 years. For me, that's like arguably my favorite band of all time. I've asked this a couple times on the show, and sometimes it's a little bit for the clippiness that I can do on social media. But, what do you think of the new era of Linkin Park?
I think it's fine. There's some good songs. There's some songs I don't like very much at all, but I actually didn't have as strong as a reaction as I expected to with how much I did care about them earlier in life. What's that song? Heavy is the Crown. That's a great song.
That song really rips.
Yeah.
Seems like it's like right off of Meteora almost. Exactly. You know what I mean?
And I actually have the 20th anniversary set of Meteora vinyls right
there. That release was awesome. Like when that Lost song got put out, and there's one other one on that I can't remember. Finding Myself, I think it's called. Yeah. It's like their B-sides that they forgot about still beat like 90% of bands. It's just incredible.
Yeah, they're great.
But no, I'm the same way. I'm a total like apologist for the new era. I actually really like it. I understand the hate a little bit. I think some of it also, there's a little bit of obvious like misogyny and stuff that gets pulled out and all these different things. But it's still fantastic. They still beat the shit out of like everyone's favorite shitty metalcore band that's out there for sure, right?
Yeah.
No, but going from that, you're into these very like early 2000s bands from different, kind of scenes, I guess you could say, whether it's Linkin Park, kind of that bigger era, some heavier music in the mainstream, or that kind of raw post-hardcore emo music. When did kind of writing your own music come into play? Like, were you somebody that played instruments early on as a kid? Were you someone that kind of got into it later on in like high school when you kind of could get into like the scene click? Like, kind of where did that come from for you?
I think I got my first guitar from my parents in like 6th grade or something.
And I was always, have it?
Man, I don't think so. It was like this 3/4 size acoustic guitar. It was a piece of crap. But actually, my first electric guitar I do have, but it's like in disrepair. I always have this idea that I'm going to get it fixed one day, and my band's like, "You're definitely not. Just throw this thing away." But you can't.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I won't grab it for because who cares, because this is not about me. But right back here, I've got like it was an Ibanez, basically like a Strat, fake Strat.
Yeah.
And it's covered, like, I want to do something with it, like throw a baritone neck on it or something, but it's covered in like Jesus stickers, which is very, very funny. So
wow.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you on wanting to fix it up, and yet it just sits with like rusted pickups and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, kind of. So you get your guitar earlier on, like you just kind of like noodle around, take some lessons, learn a lot of covers. But like, where does that kind of come from for you to start not just listening to this kind of music, but really like wanting to create it yourself?
Kind of a blur back then. I was trying to start a band pretty much the second. I did take some guitar lessons, but at first I was just hitting the open notes, not really knowing what the frets were for. But once I figured that out, I pretty much was trying to start a band with any friends I had for a long time. And it didn't work until like, I think it was like sophomore year of high school or something. I finally got some people together and actually like practiced, and we made some really crappy songs, but we went out there and played it and stuff. So I think around sophomore year of high school is when I really started like making songs.
Was that do you have any like what do you remember like your first band name, like do you remember an early band name? Do you have one you'd be willing to throw out there?
Yeah, we were called Vices.
That's just not that simple. Bad though. That's really not that bad.
It's all right. Yeah, just generic.
That's like I've heard way worse on here, believe me. But yeah, that's the way to go. You kind of like pull it from just like a song title. That's like the most classic way to do it, right?
Literally.
That way you know you didn't fuck up, because like your favorite band put a song out with the name. It can't be that bad.
Exactly.
No, but yeah, pretty classic. Putting out, writing some pretty, I'm sure in your mind at the time, fantastic songs that later on you're like, thank God these were not in the era where everything's recorded and put out there, right?
Yeah.
Were you in a lot of bands before Arcantica? Were you in bands that like put out releases? Did you kind of like build from there to playing like in different genres? Like, what was kind of your trajectory before starting this band?
It was kind of interesting because that band Vices pretty much just turned into my next band. Like, we lost some members, then we got some members, and we changed our name to Letting Go. And we put out, well, there's one EP we put out that isn't on streaming stuff. I have like 3 copies in my closet, but then we have an EP on streaming stuff and a full length on streaming stuff. And we did some cool stuff in that band. It was just metalcore stuff. And we toured around the Northeast and just down the East Coast. We went down to like Georgia and stuff. We played some shows like the Devil Wears Prada around here, stuff like that. Sick. That was fun. But it kind of just died out. The members kind of stopped getting along, and then actually 2 of us left and turned into Arcantica now.
So you really didn't have like a long trajectory of a bunch of like failed band projects and all that kind of stuff. Just really like kind of one went into the other, and then here you are. That's nice. I wish I had that trajectory myself. That sounds stable. That sounds really good.
It sounds stable, but it's kind of just me being crazy and not letting something die. So I just keep pushing ahead with it.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do as a musician though too, because like, I don't know, you keep doing different projects, you keep doing different things, and just like kind of restarting over and over again, and you can get into a place where like it's like what the fuck am I even doing? So that's kudos to you. So this band Letting Go, you're saying kind of like transitioned into the very early iterations of Arcantica. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, so me and the bassist of Letting Go, we kind of agreed, and I don't want to like say anything bad about the scene, but there's so many people that like it's really fake sometimes, and we were just kind of getting sick of like playing the game, which it's kind of minimizing actually making connections with people. But there are some times where you start to feel like that, because I'm just not a super outgoing networking kind of guy, which makes it that much harder. So we kind of left. We wanted to kind of change our sound a little bit. So if you listen to Arcantica's first EP, it's like just rock music. There's some screaming here and there, but it's like very different. And on that EP, actually, Withered, it's me and him singing. We kind of were 50-50 with the vocals for a little bit, but then he decided he wanted to be in a different band. And I was like, okay, because I kind of wanted that energy back anyways from kind of the Letting Go stuff. So then we found a new bassist. I dropped the guitar, and we got our current guitarist and bassist, and then we started putting some of that energy, some of those breakdowns kind of back into the sound.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also see from listen through this, but a lot of times I just throw on from a band, I throw on their discography on Spotify and like don't look at the song titles when I have to drive a lot. So
yeah.
And it's interesting too that your first song on your first EP is named Vices, which is
It
like
sure
a little,
is, yeah.
a little whole like full circle thing there. We got another from Austin in the chat says he has a letting go flyer framed on my wall. True story.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
really fun.
Austin came to our, I think maybe multiple shows in Georgia. Yeah, I love Austin. He's awesome.
That's awesome. That's so funny. But yeah, so you kind of put out this rock record, do a little bit of lineup change. You put out your EP Echoes in 2024. Again, another 6-song one. Really great. I really enjoyed the EP as well. I think your newest one like really pushes all this stuff like up and over the top in a good way, not to diminish your previous releases in any way. But to kind of dive into this EP a little bit, I guess like broadly, for this band, let's say like after Withered, where you've kind of had this same lineup, right? For the most part, since the last EP, what's kind of the songwriting process for your band? What kind of like what influences you guys have? Is it still that kind of earlier stuff solely that you talked about with like Silverstein and that kind of emo post-hardcore era? Just kind of put me in a room. Like what's it like for you guys when you write songs? Is it a lot of like DAW with some plugins? Is it a lot of jamming in a room? Kind of like what's it like?
So the way it worked at first was a lot of just me coming up with an idea, a riff or something, throwing it into Logic, and then kind of making a song out of it. And some of that is still retained on Vacancy. So some of the songs were kind of from before the lineup change, and some of them were written with the lineup change. And we definitely made some changes to them with the new people, saying, like, what do you like about this? What can we improve? Because we want everyone's ideas on it. But we've been leaning more towards, I'll still kind of make the idea of the songs and like program some crappy drums and stuff. And then our drummer Brandon will come in, make them way better. Our guitarist will come in, make my riffs way cooler. And our bassist goes wild on the bass. I just play root notes when I'm doing the demo. So they pretty much take my idea that's like, this might be cool. And they make it into something actually cool that we're all super proud of at the end of it.
But you still, even though you've kind of dropped the guitar live, you're still kind of a lot of the times coming up with the skeletons from the get-go. Is that's still primarily the case?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Very cool. And that was the case for both Echoes and Vacancy for the most part, like pretty much like similar writing styles across the board there.
So Echoes is a cover EP.
I'm an idiot. Yeah, I should know that, but most of these songs, except for Crawling, I remember when you put out the Crawling release, most of those other songs, I listened through this. I remember the Crawling, most of these other songs, like I barely know who the original is. So for me, it was not really much of a cover EP.
Just some cool songs, yeah.
It's one of those things, like I remember when you shared that it was a cover EP and my brain's just fried. Yeah, that's going to stay in the edit for me to sound like a fucking dumbass. But there we go. Well,
that's totally
okay,
fine.
But kind of as a trajectory there though, like what was the idea of in 2024 putting out a covers EP? Because like that's cool. That's, I think in some ways that's a good way to like game the streaming algorithms and things of that nature. It's another way for people that haven't heard of you. So many people, like when I've done this show for like I said, we're getting up to 100 episodes now. One of the pitfalls I see in the music community is that there's so much good music put out, like bands like yours, like up and coming bands, local bands that tour, kind of grinding it out independently, all these different things that people don't check out just because they don't know them and they're not big. You know what I mean? There's this kind of like access thing that people need, that like the band already has to have like this meteoric rise almost, or at least like mid-level rise for them to be willing to check out the music, which is insane to me. I don't get it. I grew up in like a DIY scene where it felt cool when you found a band no one else like knew about. That's not the case with like how like clips and social media, and I'm sounding like a boomer right now, but you know what I mean, like all that kind of stuff. So was that like an angle to it to kind of try to get new listeners? Was it just you guys liked the idea of kind of rehashing some songs in a different way? Like where was the idea there for that?
So it kind of came about, and that was with our old bassist too, so he's singing on a bunch of those songs as well. But it started with, I wanted to do a rock, metal, whatever you call it, cover of Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, which
yeah.
I don't know. I just had this idea for it, and I'm sure other bands have done it. I don't know, but I thought it was cool. And then we heard it, and we're like, well, what if we did like a couple different genre songs in our genre? And it took way longer than we expected to actually put this thing out. That's why it came out last year. Now we're putting out another EP this year. But I thought they were fun. I thought they came out really cool. So I didn't want to just kind of like discard them, because our bassist had already left the band at that point. But we had these cool songs that we recorded. We paid to have them all nice and mixed and mastered. So we're like, we should just put these out. We still play some of them live every now and then, because another thing is you have to think people want to hear songs they know when they come to see you, and they get excited when they hear songs they know. So it's always fun for something like that too.
Yeah, it's a good in, right? Like I remember, I live in the middle of nowhere now and I'm old, so I go to less shows than I used to, but I always remember like it was or when I played shows more too, I played in a metalcore band that toured a little bit and a punk band that toured and stuff like that. And it was true that like no matter where you were, if we'd be like doing a hometown show or off like a little bit more east or south or whatever the case may be, second you pull out like my punk band, we would cover like Against Me a lot, and the second you would pull out an Against Me cover like Teenage Anarchist or something, then people were into it, right? Like it's like it's just a good way to pull people in. They remember your band a little more, as long as you do the cover well, which you do. It is it's not like solely a marketing tactic. Obviously, it's just fun to cover other songs. Like everyone loves to do that, but it's also like it's just like a good idea to pull people in at a show. And like as a band, you want to do whatever you can to get one more listener if you're going to play a show, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Well, after we get through me fumbling through that one, we'll get to Vacancy, which again is coming out May 30th. 6 songs. We've got Pins and Needles, Shallow, Rift, Dead Air, Subsistence, and After All. Again, really, really great EP. I thought there's a lot of dynamics in it for a 6-song release. As I said earlier, you can hear a lot of the classic post-hardcore and emo influences. Just kind of broadly tell me about this record. Was this just kind of a collection of songs? Did you have an idea in place overall of what like the theme was for this? I just kind of broadly break it out before we do a track by track.
Yeah, so it's definitely more of a collection of songs, because it's been a while since, because I'm not super counting Echoes because of the cover element of it. So the last thing we put out, I think it was like 2022, maybe earlier. It was a while ago.
That record, at least Withered came out in 2021. Yeah, so we're talking like 4 years. Yeah.
So with all the volatility and like the lineup change, we just really wanted to get something out. So we did like get rid of some songs that we weren't super stoked on. We kept some songs we liked, and then we kind of did the smorgasbord of like, these are brand new, these are ones we kind of reworked, and we just wanted to put out the ones we thought were good songs. So there's not a super cohesive like idea behind all of them, and I'm not a huge like storyteller kind of guy. So it's kind of just, I think they all have like a theme that brings them together. Like they feel like they should be on the same EP, but it's definitely not like a concept album or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes. I mean, I don't think every band needs to have a fucking concept record and be all deep and brooding about it for it to be a great record. So that makes. But yeah, they are very cohesive. I think the tone of them is there. You've got a lot of like I said, ebbs and flows where you're going between these kind of like. I always think of them as like sort of that kind of post-hardcore clean sound of the guitars, that kind of like sparkly, almost like reverby tone before you jump into like some breakdowns and some heavy riffing and things like that. So yeah, let's just kind of get into these. We'll do a track by track. What I like to do is, you can just tell me where the influences and lyrics and stuff like that came from. We can kind of just talk there. So let's start with Pins and Needles. Really cool intro to it, or start to it. It's not an intro track, it's a full track. But like starting track to the record. Just kind of tell me about this one, what the lyrics are about, kind of break it down for me.
Yeah, so sometimes, bear with me, I'm not great at articulating the things I wrote songs about.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. It's okay.
We thought, this one has like that really slow build up into the really energetic stuff. It kind of separates itself from what we did before, so we thought it was kind of a good opening track for that reason. And I'll try to think, like, how do I say what the song is about? It's kind of about trying to help someone get out of maybe a situation they're in, but also finding yourself falling into a situation yourself while doing it. So kind of giving up a part of yourself while helping someone else, and seeing that that's not exactly a good relationship to have.
Yeah, that kind of give and take that I think you hear a lot from people if you kind of have like a above, like deeper than surface level conversation where they're talking about relationships that they have, right? Where it's like this push and pull of like, you want to help someone, but how much in that instance are you then like losing of yourself? And is there like this reciprocation? Not that friendships or relationships should be transactional, but at a certain point, are you burning yourself out to help someone else where they're either not listening or they're not bettering themselves or they're not like appreciating the relationship you have with them? Is that kind of what you're alluding to there?
Definitely. That was actually a very good articulation of what I tried to say.
I've been doing this a little bit. I can pull these things out a little bit, but yeah, I mean, that's a very relatable topic. I think a lot of these songs, I didn't have the lyrics on hand, obviously, but a lot of the songs sounded like they were very like intrinsic, and very like felt very relatable in the kind of concepts you had in the songs. As far as the instrumentation goes, is there anything specific for this one that, did it start off, or were there any like things of note for influences and things like that for this one?
I remember, I'm going to forget the band's name, but our bassist, Zach, he had put together this playlist of things that he thought maybe we could use as influences. He called it Arcantica, Can We Sound Like This? We love making plays off of our weird name. One of the bands, I'm going to butcher it if I try, but they do a lot of like kind of like breakdowny heavy stuff, but with like singing over it, like light falsetto-y singing stuff. And that kind of inspired the verse after that first main riff. And then after that, a lot of the way I write songs is kind of, I get the initial idea and I just kind of go with whatever feels right after that. And then we put it together again later and like cut parts and whatnot. But this song kind of stayed the way the demo sounded because we were all like, that sounds cool. So it's kind of a really simple song to put together.
That's nice when you don't have to do a bunch of edits and like rack your brain to kind of get the end product. I meant to ask this earlier when we started talking about the EP, but you said you guys don't do this like complete like in house from your computer to like a to like a mixer or whatever, right? Or do you send it out to somebody? Do you go to a studio? Kind of like what's your actual recording process there for this record?
So for this one, we actually went to our bassist who has his own mixing company, Zach Zyla Audio. Pretty much we took my demos, we went to him and we kind of did pre-pro and recording at the same time. So nice. we learned the demos the way they were, played them out, and we're like, well, what if we did this? And our guitarist would like riff over stuff and we'd find a lead that we liked, because I try to leave him open for him to have ideas and not do too much stuff that it's like, well, if I change it, it's going to change the song. So we kind of just sat down in a room and just kind of figured them out while pre-proing and recording them. It was kind of interesting to like figure out what each of us heard in the song at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's the way to do it. And that's cool that seems like more and more bands I talk to, it turns out one of the band members is like just also does mixing and has their own studio and is able to kind of pull that together. So that's good. Well, thanks for going over that. Let's get into the second song, Shallow. It was a tough one to pick between this one and I can't tell you why. I never know why. But this one and Rift for my favorite of the two on the EP, but I like all of them. But kind of break this one down for me. Go as broad or as detailed as you want for both the lyrics and the songwriting.
So this song actually was about half written lyrically by our drummer. He had just been going through a tough time and he sent me some stuff and was like, hey, do you think this would be good for a song? Kind of just wanted to let it out. So this one was partially written by him. I kind of just edited it. It's kind of about just feeling like you're exhausted from fighting over and over, whatever that battle may be, and just feeling like you're losing it eventually. And I can't actually be super specific because they're his.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's what I feel out of it anyways when I'm singing it.
Yeah, and yeah, that's not relatable at all for everybody that isn't like a Nepo baby or rich or something, of just like being burnt out and exhausted the entire time, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Again, very relatable. I think there's kind of a through line there for this record. Songwriting wise, what's is there anything you can speak to on this one? Is it kind of similar to the previous one? What were kind of some things that you remember from the songwriting or recording, kind of what you were alluding to, all that kind of stuff?
I'm trying to remember. This one's kind of a blur. I don't even really remember writing it. I feel like we wanted more of a straightforward, like still like post-hardcore metalcore, but kind of more straightforward like rock dynamic song where it has like the guitar lead and the chorus, and you kind of know what's happening at every single point. But it is a little bit heavier too.
Mm-hmm.
We also wanted a song that was in 6/8. Like we decided we wanted a song in that time signature.
There we go. That's the best time signature right there. You made the right decision. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've always said that there's something about my brain that I can like only think of music in triplets. Like I have to force myself to do something straight. So like if it's in 4/4 for me, it's actually in 12/8 in my brain the whole time. I don't know what that says. Maybe I've got some sort of maybe I'm on some sort of spectrum or something. I don't know. I'll leave that to the scholars. But
yes.
But no, yeah, I mean, 6/8 songs are always fun to do. It kind of gives you a different. I always feel like it gives you, especially if you're even doing like a moderate to slightly higher up tempo, just like a little bit more drive, right? Like, there's just something about it, kind of that also for you can like pull you out of conventional writing cliches you might find yourself in or whatever, and just kind of makes you think about things a little bit differently, which can create a cool song like Shallow, which is a good one. Going on to the next one, Rift. Like I said, like when I always try to take note of like what stands out to me when I first listen to a record. Because obviously I listened through this like probably 5 or 6 times just to make sure I know what the hell I'm talking about, or I can understand what you're talking about when you talk about it. But this one to me, when I first listened to it, was like, this is the song that sticks out to me the most when I listen to the record. Tell me about this one. What's the concepts, songwriting, all that good stuff?
So this one, actually, I wrote this one a long time ago. I don't know if you remember, I had a little internet project with Brian from the group.
Yes, I do. I do remember it. Yep.
So I actually wrote it for this, and Brian's like, I don't like it. And I was like, well,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that he was negative about something you presented to him.
He would never
doesn't sound like him at all. No, I'm just kidding.
I hope he sees this.
Yeah. Brian knows I love him. It's fine.
But I took this demo for, I don't even know how to pronounce it out loud. He came up with the name. But for that band.
Taroff? Taroff? I don't
something
remember.
Something like that. But I took the demo from that, and I kind of changed the guitar leads to synth leads and kind of made it more for like the original version of Arcantica with the other bassist. And we had a little more synth going on back then. But I really liked it. So this was like the song. It was going to be the single originally, I think, way back. So I made sure we kept it. There's some riffs that like our new guitarist Nick definitely made way more interesting than I did. But it's kind of about the idea of 2 people kind of mutually going their own ways, and then, kind of thinking about each other, even though maybe it was for the best, but being in that situation where you still miss that person or want to be around them.
Yeah, that kind of like human condition of what am I looking for? We're like, especially as adults, like not everything that ends is dramatic, right? Whether it's a friendship or so. A lot of times it can be people move, people have different goals, people are in different circles, whatever the case may be, and it's just like kind of diving into that emotion, right? That makes a lot of sense. So this was originally for that online project.
Yeah.
You said obviously you're like, how much of it was reworked from that kind of initial, because that was kind of a pandemic thing, right? If I remember right, was that right? How much of it was reworked? How much of it stayed the same? And yeah, just as far as the songwriting and actual like production aspect of it goes, what was it there?
I think structurally, all of it stayed the same. The leads changed to synthesizer, and then the drums are completely different because the other Brian Ossip in the group, he did the drums for that other band. The drummer of Arcantica did his thing because drums are obviously very specific to the person. But I still think like the tone of it, even just moving it to synths, the way we recorded it kind of fits this more than the other project anyways. So that's right, Brian. It fits this project better anyways. So.
Yeah, there you go. It was all for the best, right?
Exactly.
I'll make sure to just clip this just for him because like, you know, not for social media. Who the fuck is going to know what we're talking about, right? But yeah. But yeah, no, that's good. And again, that's funny that that's the one that stuck out to me, and it's like kind of connected to people from people that we know together. That's funny.
Well, I don't think it's just you. I mean, it seems to be getting the most streams these days and stuff too. So that might be the song.
Well, I guess I just know what the hell I'm talking about. No, I'm just kidding. Well, that's the first half of the EP. Getting into the next one, we've got track 4, Dead Air. Again, another great one. There's not a filler track on this EP, which is always great. But yeah, break this one down for me lyrically, songwriting, if you remember anything that got changed up, etc.
So this was the last one we wrote for the EP. Our drummer actually said he wanted a song. I forget how he exactly described it, but I took it as like starting on the offbeat kind of style song. So that's what I did with the riff. I kind of wanted a heavier song. It's the only song I think that has like a straightforward just breakdown, just like palm muted. Yeah. Like I do lows in it. I think it's the only song I do that. Mm-hmm. So we kind of wanted one of those. And then the ending we came up with while we were recording it. I kind of got the idea, if you listen to Day to Remember, Mr. Highway's thinking about the end of that song. Kind of, it's like, what if we did something like that? So we kind of just repeated the chorus, but like really low, clean tones kind of thing. Very like Movements-esque sounding, especially with the drums that we added in the end there. And it just really came together when we recorded it. Like, again, the riffs are completely different than what I did. Our guitarist crushed that. So he made it a lot more dynamic as well. I think it's one of the most interesting songs we have.
Well, doing those kind of dynamic things, like, again, you're referencing probably, like, most people would say, I'm a common courtesy apologist, but like most people would say, you know, from the best record that band will probably ever make, right? And I would say maybe the best song on that record, but again, I'm being super hipstery over here right now. But that kind of like dynamic you can throw in there of like, you know, your heaviest song, and then you have like these somber moments in it, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it pans out really cool. It is more of like what I would call like the metalcore side of you guys. You know, you kind of more dip into a lot of like the post-hardcore and emo facets in your other songs on this record for the most part.
Yeah.
In a really good way. But yeah, fantastic song. The breakdown in it pulled me, and I was like, oh yeah, he's going for like that's where you get people going like live and all. Do you guys play most of these songs live already, or do you?
Oh, yeah, we play all of them live.
Awesome. So lyrically, what was kind of anything that you can pull from this one?
It's kind of similar to the other ones. I mean, thematically, maybe there's something going on there, but
yeah, maybe you're talking about disconnection and loss and all these things. Yeah, I don't know, something like that, right? Yeah,
pretty much that. Yeah, and some of the lyrics were actually written quite a while ago, and I like have a list of notes of like just stuff I come up with over the years, and this was one of those that just kind of fit really well. So it's kind of just those general themes again, like kind of the apathy, regret kind of stuff, especially as we get older. It seems to seep in constantly, especially things going on in the world and things like that. So
yeah. Well, that's the ironic part about being someone that grew up listening to, and I don't know if but you kind of just said you relate to this, of like listening to emotionally raw and emotionally like introspective music as a kid, is you think, and like people would kind of tell you it's going to be, I'm going to say the grossest like cliche of people that listen to Warped Tour style music of like, it's a phase or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But then you can find out you actually connect with those real emotions from the people when they were, now you're at the age that they were when they made the songs, and you're like, oh yeah, being an adult is awful. So I'm just emotionally and energy wise and everything else. And it's like, these songs were not being dramatic. Actually, I was being dramatic at the time. I should have been like listening to things in major keys, but I guess I have something wrong with my brain. So here we are. Right. No, but that makes a lot of sense. The song gives that vibe, and it kind of gives like maybe it's just the music along with the lyrics, but it gives like a little bit more of like that angrier side to it, where like you're not just like sad about the fact of like all these different kind of I don't know, hollow or empty feelings, or unrequited feelings or whatever you have. You're actually like pissed off about it, which maybe that's just like it mixing into the music, but it's kind of like that different side of those emotions as well, which fits with the A Day to Remember influence as well, because that's right there on the money with that record. Going to the fifth song, Subsistence, off of Vacancy. What can you tell me about this one?
So this one was another holdover from kind of the in-between times. Actually, this was another one I had proposed to Brian at some point. I don't remember.
I'm getting
what
a through
that.
line that
just those
that you
two.
wrote good.
Just those two.
2 out of 6. We're talking about a third of the EP. I mean, you got to give it to him. The hater mode made it to where you got to take these songs and kind of bring them to light in a different way. So there you go, right?
And actually play them live too. That's
fun,
right?
and actually play them live. Yeah, there you go.
But this one I had the idea for the riff, that really quiet riff for the verses, and it just kind of built from there. And this one actually has a breakdown too. I forgot about it because it's just like random at the very end, but it kind of is that same idea where it's just a lot of like, I'm tired, pretty much is the whole thing. Like,
should name the EP that. Should have just said I'm tired.
Well, there's a bed on it. that's the album cover. It's just the bed. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That is what being an adult is, right? It's just waking up going, I'm tired.
It's waking up being tired, and hopefully you have enough time to do things you slightly like to do at some point in your day, right?
Yeah. It's kind of just about that, like growing up and realizing like I don't have time for all the stuff that I want to do. Sometimes days are terrible and you don't want to be alive anymore, and that happens to all of us all the time. So it's kind of just getting that onto paper, and then at the very end it's kind of that same thing you're talking about. It's just like the angry side of it there, and I think it really conveys those emotions accurately, keeping it at the very end there as well. It just felt right to have that there.
Yeah, I love when people can kind of kick it to the high gear for like the closing out of a song, you know. This one does that really well. And yeah, again, not to beat a dead horse on the topic, but I mean, it kind of, I think this one, I don't know if you thought of it this way, but as a listener, I got this from kind of, again, didn't have the lyrics right in front of me, but it's pretty clear what you're talking about in them, is that, you know, you could kind of have the ebb and flow emotionally of like what this is talking about within the music as well. It kind of alludes, or it hands itself to that concept, right? Where like, sometimes you can get to that point where you're not just like, depressed about it. You're just gonna like, you want to break some shit, right? So that's a good way to end the song. As far as like you know, you said this was another one that Brian said no to. This is I am gonna send this specifically to him because I know he doesn't follow this podcast at all, but I'll send it over to him to be like, we talked about you more than you might think, but but like, you know, other than that, like as far as the songwriting process went with this one, any influences? You know, you alluded to a Day to Remember with the previous one. Was there anything that kind of like was definitive in kind of steering the ship on this one?
Yeah, it's not even necessarily a band I super listen to, but you know, like that Being as an Ocean sound where it's screaming over like the clean guitar. We didn't really end up doing that with the song, but that was kind of the idea that made the song start. The idea was going to be Brian screaming over the clean guitar parts, and then I kind of just took it and like changed it into what it is now. But that's where the influence for it originally came from.
Yeah, I haven't listened to Being as an Ocean in a while, but I loved that band, their first several records. And then for me, it was more like La Dispute was kind of, which I know not everybody, you either love them or hate them.
Their first album I did like.
After Wildlife for me is like one of the best records of all time. It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong, but it's fine.
I can give another shot and get back to you.
Yeah. Just, this is so cliche, but King Park for me by them is like maybe one of the best songs ever written. But I will let you be wrong about that. It's fine. No, but okay. No, but like, but what I mean is that kind of sound, that kind of like really raw sound that I would say Being as an Ocean brought to more like, I don't want to say commercial because it's, again, the Warped Tour era. It's not like like what you would call commercially successful, but you know, they got pretty popular with that sound. And I think there's something to that like you said, it didn't end up being that way, but it can kind of scratch a certain itch on your brain of like an emotion that you can't really qualify. You know what I mean? But like in music, you can make it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I love bands like that. There was a band around here from like 2012 that I still go back to their EP. Haven't been around in a decade. That it's like that same kind of thing. So definitely a big influence that you can pull a lot of emotion from.
Yeah.
Going to the last track on the EP for Vacancy. Again, people should definitely, this will be out, recorded version, edited and all that stuff. Probably either the day of or the Monday after. After All, the finale of the record. Break this one down for me.
Yeah. So After All, I really wanted a song that started with bass. I don't know like why, but that was just in my head. It's like, this has to start with bass.
A different start to a song, you know, a different approach. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think I really, you can probably tell from listening to it, I really like the ups and downs of like really quiet verse, really big other part. This one is a little bit different of a structure. It's a little more dynamic than just verse chorus. But when I made it, it really felt like the closing song of an album. And also want to give a shout out to Broadwing. We have the singer of Broadwing, a band that our bassist is also in on this song. He does a great job. But yeah, I don't really super remember the way it was made, but I remember the chords of the bass. That's pretty much the basis of the whole song. It's pretty simple, but it was supposed to be one of those like closing song, emotionally driven kind of deal to just finish off the EP.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love when someone can pull out the bass as being like the focus of a song, because I think like I'm someone that believes, and I primarily play guitar. I'm not saying this as I sometimes play bass, but I'm like a fake bass player. But you know that like, you know, bass and drums can really make or break a record, right? Like we could talk about, I mean, every instrument, I guess you can say that. You could say that about vocals, you could say that about guitar or whatever, but like if you can kind of like change pace a little bit and have something shine in that way or be the forefront, one, it just kind of breaks you out of your writer's block or cliche, like I said earlier. And it just kind of gives you a different flavor of how like approach to like starting the song and starting like the tone of things, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So as far as like lyrics and stuff goes, what's kind of the concept behind this one?
It is definitely very similar to those other ones, but it's a little bit more.
You said you didn't make a concept record, and you
but here we are.
You know, you can just tell people after this that you did. Actually, it was all intentional. You know.
Yeah, I didn't think I thought about the whole thing. It was planned.
Yeah, planned it out. Here's Act 1. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's definitely more about like feeling overwhelmed with everything, just in general, like things going on in the world, things going on with your life. I do seem to come back to that whole being tired thing in like every single song now that I'm talking about it. And I think it's it really does hit a chord with people like our age, because obviously the band sees all these lyrics too and they're like, that's cool, use that. So we all kind of agree that we're tired all the time and just sick of it all the time. But this one I think is really a lot more straightforward with like what I'm tired about. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it is funny. It's like and I've noticed this from other bands that we've kind of referenced or whatever, that when you listen to it, like, not that there's nothing wrong with somebody writing like a song about a relationship, but a lot more people now that I talk to, they're like, I just want to rest. Like, I would love to get 7 hours of sleep, wake up and do something I want to do just once a month. Like, that would be awesome, you know? Like, so but that just goes to relating to it and kind of like the age we are now, where you might have prioritized social interactions or you know, fleeting emotions and relationships, and now it's like I just want to feel like I'm not like needing to chug like 4 energy drinks to get through the day or something, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, but that's cool. Again, yeah, I think that one, whether or not you intended it to be, it's a great, as you kind of alluded to, that it was like a great kind of ending to a record. You kind of did a good balance in this in 6 tracks of what you would kind of look for in a full-length album, you know, of like the ebbs and flows. You didn't do the needed acoustic song that's like right before that's got to be for the next EP or the next album, right? But no, Aric, thanks for going over this one for me again. Vacancy from Arcantica is going to be out, and it'll be out now, but out May 30th, from people listening live or whoever sees clips or things of that nature. Thanks for going over this one for me. Is there anything else you can kind of just say broadly about the record? Anything you want people to know about it? And just kind of speak to Vacancy as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, we put a lot of work into it. It took a lot out of everyone finally getting this thing out. Like we mentioned before, it's been 4 years since we put out anything technically original because of the covers. And anything with this actual lineup on it, this is the first time, and I think it's definitely the direction we're headed in now versus the more rock focused stuff. We like the energy. It's definitely got a lot more energy if that's what you're looking for from music. If you like that earlier post-hardcore kind of stuff, that's definitely where we're coming from with it. and our bassist mixed and mastered it. He also took the photo on the front of it, so I want to give a shout out to him as well for that. And it's going to be out everywhere May 30th, like you said. We have a CD release show in June, on June 7th in New Hampshire, so sadly you probably won't be able to make it out for that, but we're going to try to do I think a little tour like we've done in the past, like with Josh's band Riverside Drive last year. We're going to try to do something like that where we hit a few cities around the Northeast, hopefully further if we can. For Rift catches on with more people, then hopefully we can go even further, maybe come out to you, stuff like that. But that's the current plans right now.
Well, look at that. I was going to ask you, one of my usual ending questions is, what you got going on for the rest of the year? Are you going on tour, all the good stuff? And you beat me to it. Well, Aric, again, thanks for going over this so much. I have not done this in forever, but since you're a fun guy, and I'll kind of ask this before I have you pick a song to play at the end from the release. I used to do a couple of hypotheticals. Maybe people find this cringe, but I don't give a fuck, so I'll ask anyway. So say you're in this band, Arcantica, or say you have to create a new project. Everybody leaves. They all leave you. You're heartbroken. All that horribleness. If you could pick any band members, living or dead, from any of your favorite bands, kind of an all-star fantasy league lineup for your band, who would you pick?
That's crazy.
Yeah. I stopped doing it because people got mad at me when I would ask it, but I'll ask you.
I'm definitely not mad. Man, that's tough. It really depends like what kind of genre I want to make too. Like, do I want to be heavier? Do I want to be lighter?
I gotta tell you, I think it was Dan from the Dallas Cowboys picked an entire symphony orchestra backing, and then picked like a classical pianist, and then picked like, a guitarist from a hair metal band. That's Dallas Cowboys for you, but you know what I mean? Yeah, you can go wild with it if you want to. Somebody else picked it might have been Dan actually that picked like a somebody's like, concert band or whatever from like the 12th century. Like it's just absurd. So that's I was not expecting that when I asked the question, I'll tell you that much. But yeah.
I'm not nearly as creative as
I'm not either. I would never have come up with that. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably pick something from like Silverstein or from Home to Ashes, like the same stuff that influences me. It would just be like something in that vein, really.
Yeah, so let's think here. So are you going as far as the guitarists go? Are you going Josh, or are you going PMR from Silverstein?
Well, PMR is really creative, but I am a huge fan of that older stuff, so I might have to lean towards Josh. Yeah.
What about drummers go? Would you go Paul? Would you go a different drummer from a different band? Who would you go with? Because what I like about Paul is, now we're just getting to Silverstein fandom, but what I like about Paul is that he doesn't do double bass, which I find impressive. I find
actually
not that
Letting Go did not do that either.
But
we didn't have any double bass, and we were metalcore, so people always love to hear about that.
That's crazy when people can do that. I just I can't fathom that. Well fine. I guess I'll let you skate out of the question and not actually give me a lineup. That's fine.
It would take me hours to actually like nail it down.
That's fine. We'll just say that you would kick Shane out, you'd be the vocalist, and then you could be the singer Silverstein. I'll actually send that part to him as well. No,
he'll love it.
But again, Aric, thanks for going over this. Again, listen to Vacancy, out now. If you hear the recording end of this, people that are listening, the few people that are on here right now on Twitch, imagine that it's the future. And from this record, again, we talked about Rift, we talked about Pins and Needles, we talked about all 6 songs. You picked your favorite. What would you want people to hear if they had never heard the band before, hear this out for the first time? What song do you want to play at the end of this?
I think Rift is probably the go-to.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Yeah. I think it's a good encapsulation, kind of like a good accessible song that still kind of like has a lot of facets of your band. So that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, again, this has been Aric from Arcantica, post-hardcore band out of New Hampshire, with their new EP Vacancy, out May 30th. Aric, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I thank you for reaching out and doing this whole thing. It's been awesome. A
one line.